This program, which we do Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, is sponsored by Fieldstone Memory Care of Bainbridge Island. Fieldstone offers innovative and compassionate care. They have beautifully appointed apartments on Rolling Bay, and they are now offering day stay and respite programs. To learn more, call 360-689-4314. Also, I'd like to acknowledge that the Senior Community Center is on the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Suquamish tribe, the people of the clear salt water. We honor them and are grateful for their hospitality. And today we have Jennifer Calvin Myers from Kitsap Aging and Long-Term Care. Jennifer was just in the Senior Center doing a presentation about support for caregivers, and I asked if she would stick around and repeat some of that information for those of us, and also so we could record it and share it with our larger group in our Monday email. So welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, thank you.
So you work for an organization that's affiliated with Kitsap County. You work for the county, and there are many, you were saying earlier in our meeting, area agencies on aging across the state of Washington and across the country. And those are resources for people who want senior services and some services for disabilities. And we were talking today about people who help people who are having difficulty with activities of daily living or shopping or picking up their prescriptions. And you might not think of yourself as a caregiver, but you might qualify to call yourself one. Can you say a little about that?
Sure, yeah. And I can ask the group too. I can share my PowerPoint that I did today. Do you want me to share that? And I have it available, Reed, that I can pull it up just as talking points, or do you guys want me to just kind of freeform what I share?
Any thoughts?
Have an opinion either way?
I think let's just talk it through without the PowerPoint, if that's okay.
Sure. I will probably look at it from time to time just to make sure I'm kind of following our sequence for you to keep it in perspective. But yeah, like Reed was talking about, you know, there's oftentimes we're helping others in our lives. And so those might be our immediate family members. They might be a neighbor. They might be someone in a church, other civic group, someone you know at the senior center. So that title of a caregiver doesn't need to be a formal trained status that you have. You don't need to hold a license for how we talk about caregivers. You're just somebody helping somebody else, in our opinion, and it's an adult helping an adult here in Kitsap. So the idea is today what we talked about is how throughout the course of life, we all have different interfacing moments with that concept of being a caregiver. So sometimes we are one right now. Sometimes we're gonna be one in the future. Sometimes we might need to receive the care. And it's sometimes overlapping. Sometimes it's sequential, sometimes it's not. Sometimes there's a hiatus and you're really not connected, you know, needing to help anybody in any kind of ongoing way. So it's just recognizing that that identification piece is really more about what you're doing, not the label you necessarily give yourself, but in the context of looking at resources in your community, you'll see that word caregiver talked about, or caregiver support. And the idea is you can know now that that could apply to you if you're helping someone with what Reed was mentioning too, like those activities of daily living. So some examples of those could be bathing. And bathing can include just standby assistance. Sometimes people support people who just don't feel secure and safe in the shower. So you're just maybe helping them get into the shower, but then they wash and do everything on their own. You might be doing just setup help where you're making sure the shampoo is there and towels are there, but you're not really doing hands-on bathing. So bathing's a pretty wide topic as well. It's not having to be explicitly hands-on per se. Other activities of daily living, when you help people get up and down, like out of chairs or out of like off a couch, they might use a walker or a cane, but they just need a little help getting up. That would count as something that is an activity of daily living. Taking medications. If people need reminders to take their medications, that's often something that falls into that area too. And also, like, sometimes there are people who have trouble once they're in bed, or some people like even sleep in a recliner, but they can't roll over by themselves, or they can't position in bed. That's something too that crosses into what the programs we work with look at as far as activities of daily living. So it might be those kind of things that you're helping people with, but it also might be something more broad, like running errands. Like if you're helping go get groceries for somebody and drop them off. If you're getting to the pharmacy to get prescriptions, if you're helping people schedule their doctor appointments, maybe going with them to doctor appointments just to make sure you're keeping track of all the things going on, or you're helping to communicate concerns or changes. You know, that's a caregiver role that is not those hands-on kind of things necessarily. Another area that could still put somebody in that caregiver title is helping someone pay bills or manage finances, balancing their checkbook. Even doing chores around the house, like if they're doing indoor chores, doing laundry, light housekeeping, or outdoor chores, home maintenance. I mean, anytime we are an adult helping someone else because they're having trouble taking care of whatever aspect of their life it is, really that could fit into a caregiver role for being able to get some support from our office. So we reviewed that today. And then we also talked about, let me look at my notes here just so we don't get.
Yeah, I just wanted to focus a little bit on that, just that idea that if we are willing to call ourselves a caregiver, that sort of might raise our awareness of the fact that we might be using some of our energy and resources that are not being renewed right now. And so in your presentation, you do talk a lot about the kinds of specific resources that might be available, or the barriers to what I might be able to get through your office based on income or the age of the person I'm helping, or a number of other little factors. But at a base level, it sounds like there's some kinds of resources that I, as a caregiver, might be able to get from your office, or that your office might be able to tell me about to get me going.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was wondering if you might talk a little bit about some of those things.
Yeah. So when
I might get from your office without any kind of income qualification or the status of the person I'm helping.
Yeah. So a lot of that comes in the support for part of what Reed mentioned is that energy you're expending, taking care of someone else while you're trying to take care of yourself. So the support you get from our office without any income or asset criteria is you can connect to staff in our office who are aware of all those ups and downs people go through. So you're changing your roles with the person you help. You're changing your relationship with the person you help. And sometimes that in yourself can bring up some emotions that are hard to face, and people sometimes feel guilty about that, or they don't understand, you know, how did I get here? How did this all happen? So we really play a support role to just help you wherever you're at. That's the other piece. It's customized. So you might be finding a lot of benefits and uplifts in your caregiving that you do, and there isn't really any stressors per se. But you still maybe find yourself spending time on all those great things you're doing and how you value them. And then you're wondering, well, what about my activities I used to like to do? How could I do both? How could I maybe make sure this person's still being cared for and attend to my, you know, hobbies and interests that keep me sustained as a human and lively and feeling like I'm part of my life.
And I've been helping my dad with a lot of medical appointments, prescriptions. And I realized that I hadn't seen a doctor in 2 years.
Yep.
Because I've been going to the doctor quite a bit. But
not for yourself.
Asking me any questions.
Yeah. So really that's what our goal for the program, part of it is to just help you take care of yourself. Because the longer you can take care of yourself, you're going to be able to do that goal you have of helping someone else. And usually that goal is around their independence and helping them maintain their living at home that they want to do. So really it's that twofold approach. You know, we're going to help you get services for that person, but it's going to be for their benefit and for your benefit. And then secondarily, we can do a care plan with you too. Like look at, you know, we have surveys that you can take to check in on how you're doing. And then from there, look at, you know, what's going well, then where would you maybe like to make a change? How could we connect you to services through our office? Some of those services through our office, we end up paying for directly to the provider of them on your behalf. And so that we call that like authorizing services. And those could be things like maybe a personal emergency response button. Like, so the person you care for, if they had an emergency, sometimes some of them will detect if the person shifts in position, like falls, it'll automatically trigger it, or they can trigger it. There might be connection to home delivered meals. Maybe the person doesn't qualify under the usual eligibility for getting a home delivered meal, but it's enough that you as the person helping them would really get a break by knowing that's one less meal to prepare for them. So there's an alternative avenue for eligibility for home delivered meals. Could be help filling out legal forms, like getting those advanced healthcare directive forms. It won't help with wills, but it can do power of attorney for healthcare and power of attorney for finances. And then getting you connected to information. There's a host of, if people like to navigate online, there's a host of organizations, videos, topics, like Tifa Snow is a dementia. She's a physical therapist, I believe, or occupational therapist for trade, but she has a wealth of information on topics about working with people with memory loss and just the struggles and ups and downs that can go with that.
So you're telling me that if I were to contact your office, somebody in your office might, and I were to say, I'm working with somebody with dementia, they might be able to give me resources that I might be able to watch online, or put me in touch with, maybe if there's an Alzheimer's support group in the area, they might be able to let me know where they meet and when.
Yep. And then at times too, depending on how much through our process, we have different points of entry, if you will. There's like a survey, there's an assessment. Depending on that, there's different amounts of money we can help spend toward connecting people to services. So sometimes classes happen to have a registration fee, but maybe someone's like, well, you know, I really don't want to be able to budget my money toward that because I need money for other things. We could maybe pay for a registration fee to help support a caregiver to go to a training of interest to them that they feel is relevant and helpful for, you know, who they're caring for. So classes, resources.
I noticed one thing in the presentation, which we just finished, but we're talking over now, was that it looked like most of the income and asset qualifications are related to the person that you're helping as much as what your resources are. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah. So some of them depend. If it's a spouse couple, it might consider spouse information or a total combined household. Some of them don't. They only look at the person who needs the care and they won't look at a spouse. If there are children helping someone or you're just helping a friend, then it definitely would only look at the care receiver, who we call it, the person who needs help. It only look at their income and assets. So that's part of also what you can get from our office without needing to qualify for anything, is information about, you know, the different elements of eligibility as well. Yeah.
So I want to open it up in case anybody who's on the line here has questions from what we've covered so far. Rita.
Do you have what's the website for you guys that I'm assuming has a bunch of stuff so we could go in and kind of take a peek at it? So.
Yeah, it's agingkitsap.com, and I can probably type that in the chat here.
Okay, agingkitsap.com.
Yep.
Okay.
And our phone number I'll put here as well.
And I'm going to put it up as well on the screen.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and we're happy to meet. You know, if you have other groups that you participate and attend, you know, we can do like what we're doing today with you. So feel free to also connect with us that way if you'd like us to give information to other groups you work with or network with. So thank you, Reed. Yeah, that's got our phone number, our email, and website.
Okay, great.
And the next step there that's noticed is the T-Care survey. So that's specific to the caregivers. So people who are in that role of helping someone else. That survey is what I mentioned earlier about, you know, some questions about how you're doing, what's going well, what's a little more challenging. That's a part of how we get to know people and understand what they're going through. So that is one of those steps, if you will, in the process. And then from there, our staff would connect with you. Whenever we receive a survey, we then contact the person, review it with them, explain the program, how it works, and next steps, and then just help you kind of go from there to navigate other programs and services.
So you can find that on agingkitsap.com.
And our I can pull up that website, or you can if you want, Reed, but we have a caregiver support section of our website, and you click that, and this same survey is on the website that you could download and print and fill out.
Are we now seeing that?
Nope, still the slide.
Okay. Yeah, that's how that's how that works.
So, okay, so I do have a question. So my son-in-law's father lives in Bremerton. So if he needed say he needed some, maybe meals delivered a couple times a week, but he didn't sign up for like Meals on Wheels. Are there other services that would maybe help with that?
Not through our program. We do actually contract with the Meals on Wheels Kids app
okay.
to provide the same home delivered meals that people would qualify for otherwise in the community. What happens with our caregiver support program, because we are here to help anyone age 18 and older who's helping someone age 18 and older,
Okay.
the home delivered meal typical access doesn't always work for different age groups because that's primarily for people age 60 and older. So sometimes people are younger and don't qualify. But because of our caregiver support, if we know we're working with a couple who are going through, you know, one caring for the other person, we can then go ahead and approve them to get some meals if they identify that would be beneficial for them and give them a little break.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of our programs cross over, and what family caregiver support does is allow that entry point in when people don't meet the typical eligibility.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because it's focused on making your life a little easier
Right.
by helping the other person.
Gotcha.
And the other thing we talked about today too is that can change over time. So, and it can happen quickly. So the other point too we talked about is a question was asked, you know, we know IVC is on the island, we know Helpline House is on the island, you know, senior centers here you are, Kitsap County, and you're helping us. How do we know where to go and what and when and how? So really the bottom line was we're all fair game and we all really work well together. And so if you have a contact you're already comfortable with and know, or a location you already go to and you come here to the senior center, you can definitely connect with Katie. She can talk with you and just hear what's going on and help you figure out, you know, what services on island might be able to meet your needs, when it might be time to go ahead and reach out to our office instead. Some people parallel and do both because they want to know us earlier on before they encounter a crisis and they kind of already know how our program works, and that's okay too. Nothing is required for our program, so it's really at your pace and what you would like to have or not have, and then we work with what's available through our networks to match up and make that happen.
The other thing that I think is interesting is sometimes you might qualify for support and you might not know it. And so checking with the Aging and Long-Term Care Office before you start to expend funds, you might learn that, well, no, actually there isn't any money to help you, but you might learn there is. And so the step is pretty painless to just check it out before you start to spend money.
Yeah.
To see
Yeah, we do have lists too. So like Reed said, if we kind of go through with you the general income and the general assets, and we kind of go through that, if people need to private pay for like in-home care or a PERS unit, a personal emergency response button themselves, we do have some lists of some providers in our area to help get you started, because that's the next question we get. Okay, well, I don't qualify for anything through you all. Okay, where do I go for the for the next piece? So we do our best to provide that information too. Senior information and assistance is our main entry point for a lot of all the programs we talked about at our presentation earlier today. And so that's where their role comes in to help sort all that out and then provide some next steps and possible avenues to explore. Yeah.
So the purpose, in my purpose anyway, in asking Jennifer to come is so you know sort of what the environment is. Not that you need to necessarily call Jennifer today, but that if Katie at some point refers you to aging and long-term care or family caregiver support, you might have a sense of what the universe is out there. Yes, Francis.
Is there a component of mental wellness in terms of, I'm not talking about Alzheimer's now, I'm talking about depression. And the reason I ask is I had a very disturbing email from an older friend canceling a lunch and saying she just wasn't in a mood. She was so depressed and she has no family, no direct family. She's not in Kitsap County, but I wondered if Kitsap County has something like that, surely King County would probably.
Yeah, like Brita was mentioning, the offices like us, there's 13 of them around the state. So if you were to do an internet search or call our office and ask for help finding out who our equivalent is in King County, we could do that. But this website also, there's a lot. The good thing is there's a lot of ways to get there. The bad thing is it can be overwhelming to, you know, take advantage of all the options that are out there. But, well, I was gonna type something there, but I'll hold off. But yeah, so if you were to search for King County Area Agency on Aging, that is an equivalent to us. So they do part of our, outside of our caregiver support that I talked about today, and it also includes it to a degree, but a lot of the programs at our office are actually because of the Older Americans Act, which is a federal act that every state has to provide services underneath the points of service that are outlined in the Older Americans Act. So that's why there's 13 offices like our office throughout the state of Washington to then be able to deliver those programs in their communities. And counseling is one of those. So through our office in Kitsap County for people age 60 and older, there is a counseling service. It's meant to be, you know, not long-term ongoing. It doesn't typically, it's not a psychiatrist. There aren't medications prescribed, but it's a person to talk to for things that are on the minds of people. And sometimes that is sadness because of loss. Maybe there's a health condition and they feel a loss because they maybe can't do things they used to. It might be a bereavement around a specific death of somebody. It could be just general sadness for who knows what reason. But yes, there is a counseling component in mental health available through offices like ours. Most of the offices like us don't have staff that deliver that directly to the community. We contract and work through another organization that's already an expert in doing that kind of work. And so then there'd be a referral process where they can get that information to that provider or tell you how to get started. But that'd be information you could share with that person that, you know, it's not formal, there's not a diagnosis, you don't need to qualify. Usually the primary intent for providing that service is for people who have barriers to accessing that support. So sometimes a barrier could be like transportation, if it's hard for them to drive and get somewhere or they just don't drive. Or if they have a hard time leaving the house because their depression has got them to that point, they can't leave their house. Sometimes the service can come to them. That's the other piece. They can do home-based services or telephone-based support, or office if the person prefers. They do have offices they can go to. So that is one component. Yes, that's a pretty standard component of all the offices that do the work like we do. Another piece that more of them have started incorporating also are called social check-in calls. So these aren't trained, the other program has like trained professionals doing counseling. But the other component for social support in isolation is a social check-in phone call where people can decide, you know, hey, yeah, I'd like a call at least once a week to check in, you know, just someone to chat with. It's not formal. I don't have to talk about my problems that are really bothering me. You know, I could talk about fun stuff. I could talk about, you know, hobbies I enjoy or I used to enjoy or things I'd like to get back to, or, you know, whatever they want. It's a very open support and the person can decide, you know, where they take that. And King County would offer that too. Our office also offers that for anyone on the call. If you want to know, you can call our main number and we call it, I'm trying to think, senior phone call check-ins, or it's a very general name, you know, for a purpose, but the idea for that population is 60 and older. But I do know like Meals on Wheels office, like ours here in Kitsap, they also instituted, if that's a word, I just realized I'm not quite sure in that past sense, that same phone call support where they do a social check-in call with people.
Yeah, my sister-in-law did that in Maryland and found it a wonderful volunteer effort to check in with people who are 60 plus who are getting Meals on Wheels meals, just to, you know, check in. And at the senior center, we have a long tradition of calling everybody on their birthday. And those are delightful calls often. And we are partnering with Island Volunteer Caregivers and Helpline House to investigate a UW evidence-based program called Pearls, which
I'm aware.
which is designed to help those people who are volunteers who are making calls be alert to a trigger or ask a couple questions that might give you a heads up about whether somebody you're talking to might be facing depression or be stuck, and have the first steps as a volunteer to help kind of unstick you. I know in my life, I've had a couple of times where talking with a counselor made a huge difference in just getting over some sort of a barrier in my brain about what to do next or how to get out of a situation that I felt trapped in. And So having somebody to talk to, usually somebody who's not directly involved in the situation, can be really helpful.
And I did put Reed and others, Francis, in the chat. The waclc.org website is how you can look for other offices like us around Washington State. So there's like a locate or find section of that site, and you can click it and then a map comes up and you can pick other counties and then you can get contact information.
Thank you so much.
Sure, yeah. And they might have more programs too. That's the other thing about our offices. We're all given like a minimum support for funding and programs that are required under the Older Americans Act, but often, and our office included, we then also try to meet the needs of our local specific community. So we do surveys periodically to learn from our community members, you know, what is on your mind? What supports do you want? And then we try to match those through different avenues to then bring additional programs. So they might have other programs, you know, in King County, for example, that might work for that person you were talking about.
Ace.
Yes, thank you, Reed and Jennifer, for your time today. And I would like to thank Rita, Sheila, and especially Francis for sharing their experience. I'm here in the Village Green getting ready for a Rotary meeting up in Kingston. So I'm going to stay with you guys, but I have to shut my video off and I'm not going to be quick to respond. But thank you so much for having me.
Great. I hope it's useful information for you too, Ace. I want to thank you, Jennifer, for spending the time to go over this. I'm just gonna put up the slide one more time of how to contact you, because I
Yeah,
think
thank you.
that's a good next step. Let's see if I can figure
Yeah,
out where all the buttons went. There we go. Yeah, we really appreciate it. And
Yes.
as Jennifer said, Katie Auger is the Community Resource Navigator here at the Senior Center. And she's a great person as a first stop to talk to, either in person or on the phone. If you would like to get in contact with her, just call the Senior Center. She works, as we all do, closely with Kitsap County Aging and Long-Term Care, an area that we didn't get into today, but is also a part of the Area Agency on Aging, is if you know somebody who's living in assisted living or in memory care in I think it's legally called a boarding house situation, or other kinds of group living that is involved with care. There's an ombudsman program through this same organization.
Right.
It can help you work with questions that you might have about care and treatment and support for people who are living in assisted and what's it called?
I usually say facility-based care.
Facility-based.
Yeah.